These are a series of exercise classes designed for women who have just given birth. Before exercising, please check with your healthcare professional. Don't exercise if you are feeling unwell or have been advised not to. If you've had a C-section, wait for your 6 weeks postnatal GP check before commencing these classes. Wear comfy clothes that allow you to move freely. You can exercise with your baby safely in front of you. Make sure you have enough room around you. Pause the video at any point if needed. You can use a yoga mat if you have one. The 3 classes have been designed where you can do all 3 in order, A, B and C, or you can do them on their own. It's always a good idea to do class A first, which is a warm-up. There are 3 instructors to follow. Lindsay will be demonstrating 0 to 6 weeks postnatally. Emily will be demonstrating 6 to 12 weeks postnatally. And Nash will be demonstrating 12 weeks plus postnatally. However, if you're new to exercise or haven't exercised in a while, start with Lindsay and the 0 to 6 weeks. Welcome to the mat work section of the class. So during this section we'll be on the mats in different positions, working on our back, our sides and our fronts. As per the last video, Lindsay will be demonstrating the easier exercises. So if you're 0 to 6 weeks postnatal, follow what Lindsay's doing. And similarly, if you're new to exercise, I'll be demonstrating the intermediate stage of the class, so 6 to 12 weeks postnatally. And Nash will be demonstrating the advanced level. So if you're 12 weeks postnatal or above, follow what Nash is doing. Lovely, so we're going to come onto our backs into our Pilates resting position. So knees bent, relax your head down onto a cushion or a pillow, make it comfortable. Relax through the shoulders, widening through the collarbones, let the arms go nice and heavy. And we're going to have our feet slightly apart and just relax our feet down into the mat. And we're going to do a couple of pelvic tilts to begin with, just to loosen and mobilise off through the lower part of the back and find our neutral position. So tilting the pelvis forwards, really accentuating the arch between the lower back and the mat. And then tilting the pelvis backwards so you're squeezing your lower back into the mat. Lovely. So again, tilting forwards and backwards, feeling that lovely stretch as you mobilise and loosen through the lower back. And then coming into that resting position. So imagine a little chocolate stashed between lower back and the mat and a tray of drinks over your tummy. Just softening through the rib cage. You can practice some breathing, so remembering to breathe in through the nose, right to the bottom back of the rib cage, and exhaling through the mouth. And we're going to practice engaging our pelvic floor muscles and our tummy muscles a couple of times too. So you can lay your hands over your tummies and just engaging through the back passage area, drawing up towards the front area. Imagine you're stopping yourself from breaking wind and passing any urine. And then up through the lower tummy muscles. Hold that for a breath in and out and relax. And just practice that a couple of more times. So on the out breath, squeeze, imagine a zip from back to front and then up to the lower tummy muscles. And then relax. Lovely. So resting your arms down by your sides. We're going to come into our first exercise. We're going to slide our left heel out along the mat away from our sitting bone. So this is the first level. And then bring our heel back to the start position. All the time just thinking about the pelvis, keeping it in a nice neutral position by engaging the tummy muscles and the pelvic floor. So alternate sides. Now if you want to take it up a level, the intermediate level will be coming into a 90-degree angle at the hip and knee, and then straightening back to your 90-degree angle, and then lower slowly down, all the time just thinking about that little chocolate, keeping it safely stashed between lower back and the mat. Lovely, and switching legs. If you want to take it to the advanced level, you can come into the double knee bend at 90 degrees, just making sure that your back isn't arching, and then straightening from there. It's quite a lot more work on the lower back and core muscles. So again, just making sure you're sticking with a position that you feel comfortable, and you can switch it about a little bit. So if you feel that you can do a few more repetitions of that and then come back to a lower level, that's fine. Just making sure the exercises stay nice and controlled. Lovely. So we're going to do one more each side, and then we're going to come into a nice knee hug just to stretch off those lower back muscles. Again, just thinking about gently engaging through the tummy muscles as you lift or move your leg. Lovely. So hugging knees to chest. Good. Feeling that nice stretch. You can roll your knees from side to side, massage your lower back into the floor. Lovely. And then drop one leg at a time back. And we're going to add in some arm movements now. So Lindsay is going to demonstrate the level 1, bringing both arms to 90 degrees, just making sure the rib cage stays soft. So thinking about rusty springs connecting rib to hip and lower. So again, just thinking about gently engaging through the tummy muscles. If you want to make it a little bit harder, bring the arms all the way back, just making sure that you're not losing that soft rib cage. Try not to let your rib cage flare towards the ceiling. If you feel it starting to flare, just stop your arms at that point. And then Nash can add in some legs with the movement. So sliding just a heel out along the mat, away from the sitting bone, and then sliding the heel back so everything ends up in the start position. Lovely. So thinking about that control around the tummy area and the pelvic floor area, keeping your back in its nice neutral position by engaging gently through the tummy muscles. So we're looking for really nice controlled movements. Try not to hold your breath. So remember breathing nice deep breaths in and out. Doesn't really matter about the pattern as long as you're not holding your breath. Lovely. And we're just going to do one more each side. And again, we can hug knees into chest. Gives our back a little bit of a stretch. So we can hug one knee at a time. Good. And the other side. And then we're going to come into a movement for our hip joint called knee drops. So again, level 1, coming into our resting position, finding our center. And we're going to drop our left leg, knee out towards the ground, rotating at the hip, coming onto the side of the foot, and then bring it back to the start position. And again, right knee out to the side, coming back to the start position. The intermediate level would be bringing the hip and knee to 90 and dropping the knee out to the side. Again, just thinking about keeping that pelvis nice and still against the leg movements. So you should feel like you've got a spirit level or a tray of drinks. And then Nash can come into the double leg up position. And again, maintaining that control around the pelvic area. So you can imagine you're drawing a sort of half a rainbow with your toe on the wall. Dropping the knee down towards the floor. Try not to flare up through the rib cage, keep that nice and controlled. And we're going to go for one more repetition each side. And then we're going to come onto a nice stretch for our lower back, rotational stretch, our hip twist. So we're going to stick our knees and our feet together now. We're going to bring our arms out to the side, elbows to 90 degrees. Again, softening through the rib cage. And we're going to drop our knees over to the left and look over to the right. So the right bottom cheek should peel up off the mat, followed by lower back, but the shoulders should be staying down. So if you feel like your shoulders coming up, don't come so far into the stretch with your knees. Good. And again, the opposite side, you can think about engaging gently through the tummy muscles and the pelvic floor muscles. And you can look to the opposite side. So Lindsay might not want to come quite so far into the movement to make it a little bit easier. Nash may want to raise her legs up. Imagine they're balanced on an invisible 6-inch block. So she's working the tummy muscles a little bit with the movement too. I'm going to stick to the intermediate level. Lovely. So really feeling that lovely stretch again in the lower and upper back. Good. And we're going to do one more each side, really coming a little bit further into the stretch, but making sure those shoulders are stuck down into the mat. Lovely. And then we're going to bring our arms back by our sides and we're going to do some shoulder bridges. So we're going to begin by coming into our posterior pelvic tilt, so squashing lower back into the floor, squeezing our bottom cheeks together, and we can just lift a little way up off the mat for the level 1. So hovering our bottom an inch or so and then slowly peeling down. Lovely, to neutral. So engaging our tummy muscles and squeezing our glutes as we lift. We can peel up a little bit further. Good. And then slowly lower back down. Good. Bring our knees and feet slightly apart, sorry. Lovely. And again, peeling up, keeping shoulders relaxed. Imagine there's a spirit level over the hips. And coming up into our bridge so we're resting on our shoulder blades. And then slowly lowering down. Imagine back is like a string of pearls and you're picking pearl, dropping pearl by pearl back down onto the mat, back into your resting position. So really good exercise for the glutes, the quadricep muscles, and a nice mobilization for the back. Lovely. And if you want to make it a little bit harder, you can come into your bridge and you can either do some hip drops, so just relax the glute one side so the hips tilt. You can do that each side, or you can try and just lift one leg, maintaining that control around the hip area. So try not to let your hips drop to that side by squeezing this glute really hard. Lovely. Try not to grip on with your hands, so you should have nice relaxed hands. Imagine they're resting on little cupcakes. You don't want to squash the cupcakes. Lovely. And slowly peel back down. So we're just going to do one last repetition. Lovely. At whatever level you're at. Good. And then slowly lower back down. And we just hug knee to chest. Give our backs a little bit of a stretch. Good, and then we're going to come onto side lying. So we're going to start laying on our left hand side. So turning over onto our left, just popping a little pillow underneath your head to support your neck, making sure the hips are stacked, knees bent to 90, hips to 45 degrees, arms out in front of you, palms together. And we're going to come into our arm stretch. So we're going to peel top hand across bottom arm over the front of our chest. And Lindsay is going to come to 90 degrees. I'm going to reach a little bit further back, so I feel a really lovely stretch across the pecs and the front of your shoulder here and the upper back. And then I'm going to complete the circle round. Just being mindful that you want to keep your hips still. If they start to drop back, you won't get such a nice stretch. If you want to add in a little bit more of a challenge, you can also combine it with a clam, so you can lift your knee up towards the ceiling, rotating at the hip as you come back into the stretch. Making sure that the head is gently rolling backwards with the movement. Don't lift your head, otherwise you might feel a strain through the neck muscles. To keep your head relaxed down. Lovely. Good. So try and open up a little bit further each time and feel that lovely stretch around the front of the shoulder and into the upper back, keeping those hips nice and still. Good. And finishing off your last one, and we're going to come into some work for the glutes. So we can fold this arm back and just rest the top hand over the top hip, and we're going to lift and lower. So we're going to lift our leg into rotation, squeezing the bottom cheeks together, and then lowering slowly down. So keep the feet together as you lift into rotation and then lower slowly down. If you want to make it a little bit easier, you don't need to lift quite so far. If you want to make it harder, just lifting the feet up and then coming into your clam and just keep the feet hovering. So pick a level that feels right, depending on where you are postnatally as well. And you should feel that muscle working underneath your hand. Lovely. So we're just going to do a couple more repetitions, and then we're going to drop our leg forward, give the bottom a little bit of a rub, And then we're going to do another exercise for the glutes, our hip abduction. So we're going to straighten out the top leg, keep the knee bent for balance. And we're going to point the toe, keep the ankle back in good alignment with the rest of the mat. So shoulder, hip, ankle should be in a straight line. If you bring it forward, you'll work hip flexors, not glutes. So keep the ankle back and going to lift, point the toe to lift, point the ankle to lower. So Lindsay might not want to come quite so far into that range. Nash might want to do some pulses at the end of range, just to give those glutes an extra challenge. Again, you can pop your hand on your back pocket area, feel those muscles working as you lift. Lovely. Imagine there's a little chocolate stashed between your waist and the mat, so as you lift, you shouldn't be squashing that chocolate. Your back should be staying in a nice alignment. You shouldn't be collapsing down into the mat. Good. And we're just going to finish 2 more repetitions. Good, at whatever the level feels right. Then relax down. Give your bottom a little bit of a rub. You can stretch your knee towards your chest. Straighten out the bottom leg, and we're going to do some work on the inner thigh. So again, keeping in a good alignment, we're going to lift and lower. So keeping the toe pointed to lift, and then ankle pointed to lower. Toe pointed to lift, ankle pointed to lower. To make it easier, don't come so far into the range. To make it harder, you can do some pulses at the end of range, but we're going to go for 6 more repetitions. Good. Again, thinking about engaging through the tummy muscles. Good. Again, try not to let your waist collapse down into the mat. Good. 2 more. Good, and relax there. Lovely. And our last exercise on our side is our hip circle. So coming back into our clown position, but straightening out the top leg. Again, just making sure that your head feels well supported. And we're going to point our toe, we're going to lift our leg, and we're going to start making some small circles. So very slowly drawing 3 forward and then 3 backwards. Or you can start backwards and then do forward, but just swapping direction. And we're going to do 2 sets to make it harder, just make the circles larger. So Nash can do some big circles, trying to keep that control. Good. And we're going to do 3 more each way. And you should really feel that working in the glutes. 2, 3. Good. And then resting down. And again, give the bottom a good rub, hug knee to chest. And then we're going to come into our prone position, into our cobra stretch, to stretch our backs into extension. So resting forehead down, hands like a stop sign in front of you. Breathing in as we exhale, we're going to start by lifting our forehead, followed by chest, peeling up, straightening through the elbows, keeping the hips down on the mat, coming into extension. Breathe in to hold, exhale, slowly peel back down. If you want to make it harder, you can bring your hands back further, so slide your hands back if you want to come into more of a stretch or increase the stretch. And if you don't want to come quite so far, just bring your arms forward and you can just come onto your elbows. So I'm going to stick in the middle. Good. Lovely. And we're going to do 3 more. Keep the glutes relaxed. You can turn the soles of your feet outwards to relax the glutes. Good. Imagine you're peeling yourself up so you're looking straight ahead. Keeping the collarbones wide. Lovely. Good. And just 1 more. That's it. And then resting down. Good. So we're going to come into our side lying position and work our other side now. So switching sides. Good. So finding our first position for our arm stretch. So hips stacked, knees together, feet together, knees slightly bent, hips slightly bent, arms out in front of you, head well supported, palms together. And we're going to peel our top hand over our bottom arm. Again, stopping here if you're Lindsay. I'm going to continue back round, keeping the hips stacked and then reaching down towards the feet and completing the circle round. And if you want to make it a little harder, come into your clam as you reach back, making sure that your hips don't fall backwards. Remember to engage gently through the tummy muscles. We're going to do 4 more repetitions, really feeling that lovely stretch in the front of the top shoulder as you peel back, and in the upper part of the back as it mobilizes into rotation. As you peel back, feel your shoulder blades coming towards each other. As you circle round and back to the start, they should be drawing apart. Just one more repetition. Good. Lovely, and resting there. And then bringing bottom hand underneath your head, top hand resting on top hip, on the back pocket area, and we're going to come into our clams. So for the glutes, we're going to lift the top knee up towards the ceiling, rotating at the hip, and lower down. So to make it easier, don't come quite so far into the range. To make it harder, just suspend your feet into the air as Nash is doing. Engaging gently around the tummy muscles. Good, and the pelvic floor. And just thinking about your waist, so try not to let your waist collapse down into the mat. Good. And we're going to do 4 more repetitions, and then we're going to do another exercise for the glutes. Good, and relax down. And then we're going to straighten out the top leg and come into our hip abductions. So we're going to point the toe to lift, point the ankle to lower. Good. So we're going to do 10 in total. If you want to make it harder, you can do some pulses into the end of range before you lower. Good. Again, thinking about stacking the hips and making sure that the foot is staying back, not drifting forward. 4, 3, 2, 1, and lower down. Give the bottom a rub. Leave that top knee forward, straighten out the bottom leg, and our inner thigh leg lift. So point the toe to lift, point the ankle to lower. Good. And again, you can pulse into that end range if you feel like you want to work those a little bit harder. If you want to make it easier, don't come up quite so far. Good, and you should feel that working on the inner part of the thigh. So we're going to go for 3, 2, 1. Lovely, rest the leg down, and then we're going to come into our hip circle. So we're going to come into a bend the underneath knee, straighten the top leg. Imagine that piece of chalk on your big toe, and we're going to start off by drawing 3 little circles in one direction, clockwise. And then 3 little circles in the other direction. Again, just thinking about that control around the pelvic area. If you want to make it harder, make those circles a little bit bigger. So just 3 more in each direction. So working that rotational control, the hip. Good, and the movement should be coming from the hip joint. Good. And then lowering down, give your bottom a little bit of a rub. Good, and we're just going to turn onto our backs and finish off with some knee hugs. Lovely. Good, and just rest down. And that's that.
If you have any questions postnatally or need further advice or support, then please do not hesitate to refer to our perinatal pelvic health services and request an appointment with a qualified physiotherapist.